What's up, guys? Josh from Strength Side. This is a full body stretching, mobility, movement routine. Someone asked me the other day, Josh, do you have a master stretching routine you'd recommend doing every day? Why? Yes, I do. It's called the Daily Practice. This is it. You can download it for free. So, guys, since stretching can be a little dry and boring, let's make it fun. Let's bring some sexy into this. And we begin with hip rotation. So just like this guy in the video, you're going to be rotating the leg.
Tá, mas ué, eu tô fazendo, girando um monte de prato, né? Não é só esse prato que eu tô girando. Se eu tivesse girando só um prato, era fácil de perceber, né?
For free. So guys, since stretching can be a little dry and boring, let's make it fun. Let's bring some sexy into this. And we begin with hip rotation. So just like this guy in the video, you're going to be rotating the leg inward and outward. Now, try to keep the pelvis in a pretty stable position here so we're not swinging the hips open. That is going to make a lot of the rotation come from the hip, and that's what we want. As we rotate outward into external rotation, we rotate inward into internal rotation. Go ahead and switch legs as this dude just did in the video. Hip rotations are a great way to start opening up the hips and to also get us ready for some of the other stretches that we're going to do later in the routine. Probably above all else is how cool you look when you do hip rotations, to be on the ground, flailing your legs around in this kind of provocative seated position. Yeah. Okay, now after doing single leg rotation, we're gonna do double leg rotation, and now we're gonna let the hips move. So we're going to rotate the hips so we can get those knees down to the ground or somewhere close. So one leg will be an external rotation, one leg will be an internal rotation. And boy, after doing those single leg rotations, these are going to feel very, very nice on your hips. So what is this white stool doing here in the background? Well, we're about to find out right now, because we're moving on to our first upper body stretch. This is going to be a standing downward dog stretch. So you can use a countertop or a wall, anything works. You're going to reach the hands onto that surface, and then you're going to step your legs back, and you're going to press your chest and head downward. Now, I'm keeping my knees bent in the beginning here to keep my tailbone tucked. We want to keep posterior tilt in that pelvis, and then that allows us to get all of this extension from the mid, back, and the T-spine, right? So we want to feel like that area between the shoulder blades is really opening up here. And now, of course, maybe you're not able to get into this as deep as I am. That's why we're doing it. Don't forget that. So just all the force that should be going down in your body is just pressing those armpits and chest downward while the hips stay up. That's going to be achieving that good stretch through the mid-back. So truth be told, this is my second time filming this, because the first time I forgot to grab something for my knee on this stretch, and I damn near blew out a kneecap. Just kidding. It was just a little bit rough on the knees. But now we're going into some front hip opening. In the daily practice, you have a few different options here. I'm going to start in a normal half kneeling hip flexor stretch position. I'm trying to tuck my tailbone, keep my torso hollow, and squeeze my right glute. Now I'm going to pick up that back foot and pull that heel towards my butt, but I'm trying not to let that affect my hollow position. So this is just capturing the quad now more. And you guys are smart. You guys know you need to stretch the front of the hip, right? Well, if you don't know, all the sitting that we do is really just tightening up that front of the hip. So I'm usually having anyone that I work with do some front of the hip stretching almost daily, because it's just needed with all the stuff that we put our hips through these days. I'm holding each stretch for about a minute, and that's what my timer, and I'm balancing on the front of the thigh. Yeah, no, that's pretty smooth right there, balancing it on the thigh. That is set for a minute. But if these are feeling good, I suggest going 90 seconds, even up to 2 minutes. Like I said, if it feels okay for you, if you're in a version that you can sustain that 2 minutes for. So now hopping over onto the other side, I'm doing the same thing. I start in my hip flexor stretch position. I start opening that front of the hip. This side, I didn't feel like balancing the timer. And now I pull my heel up and I'm into this yoga quad stretch, capturing more quad. And this is quite a bit on the balance here as well. So if you are enjoying this stretching routine, like I mentioned before, you can download it for free. It'll be the first link in the description, and I have instructional videos for each exercise, so you can get a little bit more detailed cues on what you're doing. But no pressure. If you don't want to download it, you can simply follow along with this video, and that is great too. So you can throw your pad or sweatshirt out of the way now, and we're gonna hop into some shoulder extension stretching. This is some of my favorite stretching because I think that most people just miss out on this. This is something that we just simply don't get much of. That's the ability to bring the shoulder into extension and bring the arms behind you. So this is called the lounge chair. I'm in a seated position with all fours down, and then I'm going to press my hands down into the ground, pull my shoulder blades back, and shift my hips forward. Now, right now, I'm holding my hips off the ground. That's a little bit more intense. If you're a beginner to this, you can set the hips down. This is going to feel really, really good on the shoulder. You're going to feel some stretching in the front and in the chest. It might be a little intense if you've never done it before. And now I'm going into the harder variation. Really good on the shoulder. You're going to feel some stretching in the front and in the chest. It might be a little intense if you've never done it before. And now I'm going into the harder variation, which is essentially the same thing, but I'm driving my hips upward. This is called a crab press, or some people refer to it as a reverse plank. But I'm trying to get my torso to parallel to the ground, squeezing my butt up, and then actively pulling the shoulders back and pressing the hands into the ground. This one's pretty intense. I wouldn't jump to that first off. I'd start with the lounge chair. pretty intense. I wouldn't jump to that first off. I'd start with the lounge chair and then see if you can work your way into that reverse plank. Okay guys, next we're moving into a standing position, feet about shoulder width, and we're going to do a straight leg good morning. So we're gonna hinge at the hips, bring the torso down, shooting to get parallel to the ground. I want you to keep your torso extended or neutral, and we want those knees to stay locked, and we want the hips to travel backward. So I'm only gonna go as low as I can with keeping that back in a neutral position. So if you're starting to get that any back rounding or any flexion in the spine, that's what I'm looking for, then you've gone too far. So the next rep you want to go a little bit less far. So I'm going pretty damn low here because I've worked to get a little bit more flexible in this position. For you, you probably won't be able to get this low. You can go to parallel if that's achievable. I love this exercise because we're getting some hamstring stretching and lengthening, but we're also using that backside to what's the word I'm looking? Power us, fuel us, move us up and down, right? So the hamstrings, glutes, and back. Hold at the bottom position for 10 seconds on the last rep. Stand up. Feel good about yourself. And next is the deep squat sit. So you're simply just going to sit down in a deep squat position here. For some of us, this will be easy. This will be a bit of a break. For some of us, I see some of you dudes out there, this will be nice and stiff, and this will be a really challenging position. I used to be just like you, but I spent a lot of time doing the stuff we're doing in this routine. So if you're feeling comfortable here, you can do these little elbow presses against the knee to kind of open up the hips. If not, if you're feeling really stiff, just go ahead and sit in this position. And if you can't get deep into this, then I'm going to have you elevate your heels. Take some books, even just take your shoes, place your heels on them. That's going to allow most people to sit down into a deep squat. And if that still isn't doing the trick, you can just go ahead and hold on to something in front of you, a chair or a wall, and that will do the trick. You'll be able to get down here somehow. So that was a minute right here. I'm going to do another 30 seconds or so and just kind of, I don't know. I was feeling like changing positions. I don't know what to tell you. But try to get comfortable here. You can do some bounces like I'm doing. You can kind of wiggle around. This is another thing that's missing from our culture. We need to sit down in the squat more. And at this point, there must have been a really good song going on because I was feeling it. We're going to move into the downward dog press. So we start in a quadruped position. Knees can be on the ground or floating, and we're going to press back into downward dog. Now, this variation is the bent knee variation, and I actually don't have this in the official daily practice. So you get the exclusive here on YouTube. I like the bent knee variation because it allows us to get more into the spine, keeps the hips tucked, and it allows us to press into that thoracic spine, that middle of the shoulder blades position. So I do 5 there, and then I start extending my knees into a fuller downward dog position. This is challenging, of course. This takes hamstring flexibility, calf flexibility, and spine flexibility, of course. So once again, you may not be looking like this. Your heels may be off the ground a little bit. All that matters is each day we're trying to get a little bit deeper into this down dog position. And same as before, the chest is being pressed towards the knees, trying to press that chest and head through. You can hold in the last one for 10 seconds or so. From here, I just walk myself back into a little forward fold stretch. You can, depending on your flexibility, you can pull yourself into this, or you can just let the torso hang down. I'm just doing this as a little transition here for about 10 seconds or so. So go ahead and stand back up. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned is that this whole routine requires absolutely no equipment. Beside from this stool that I had here, which you could replace with a wall, so you know anybody's gonna have a wall next to them, you can do this whole routine with nothing, and that was by design. I wanted it to be that way so there would be no excuses. The last exercise is the basic crawl. So you're in your quadruped position, and you're just gonna move opposite limbs forward to propel yourself forward. Keep those knees close to the ground and try to keep your torso really neutral here. Notice how I'm moving slow and controlled. I'm not getting a lot of lateral or rotational movement from my hips or my torso. I'm trying to keep everything stacked in a line. So I did one little round here. I think I'm going to do another one because I was feeling good. And make sure to really press the ground away with your hands. This is reactive core strength. This is the core strength that's really usable in life, right? This is how you should be training your core. And if going backwards is too challenging in the beginning, just practice going forwards for a while and you'll get the backwards eventually. Guys, that's it. Hope you are feeling as good as I am. If you enjoyed doing this routine or just watching it, be sure to like the video and I appreciate you. You can peace out from here, or if you're not sick of me by now, you can stick around and listen to me talk a little bit longer. So the reason why I created the daily practice is for two reasons. Number one, the physical, because not only are you creating something you into, hey, what's up, guys? Josh from Strength Side. This is my current unlocked charge. Him like so. Now, this stretch I learned from Kit, seated position, and get into it. And the first stretch, we're actually just going to start in a seated position like so. Now, this stretch I learned from Kit Laughlin, and it's a stretch for the rotators, the piriformis. What you're going to do, and I'll link to Kit Laughlin's video in the description, so if you want to see him just showing this stretch probably better than I do, then you can check that out. So you're going to start in this position, one leg down, crossed, and then we're going to cross this leg over the top like so, okay? So if this is already like, you're like, I can't get into this position, what I'm gonna have you do is a regressed position where you keep this leg straight, cross this leg over, cross this arm over this leg, and then push the elbow into the back of the knee, so my knee is going up into this armpit, okay? You could gently rotate the torso. That's the regressed version if you can't do this. So we start here, I cross like so. Now it's very important that this hip is staying down on the ground, okay? So I'm not just shifting all my weight into the hip that's not being stretched. I want to keep this hip, the hip bone, driving down into the ground. So I hook my arm right into the elbow here, right? And I pull this knee towards my armpit here, okay? While I'm putting this hip down into the ground, okay? So we're gonna start the timer here, 1 minute. Now try to relax this hip that's being stretched here. Let it, every time you exhale, let it sit down to the ground there. Now the other thing that Kit talks about in his video is trying to lift the rib cage along this leg here, okay? So don't let yourself get rounded forward. We're actually trying to straighten the spine. And if you're able to find that straightening of the spine and dropping the hip, you'll feel a really good stretch in the rotators of the hip there. I find that doing some rotation first in the scheme of stretching things leads to other things actually opening up as well. So I like to start with stretching out the rotators and the glutes a bit before I do some of the other stuff. Okay, that's a minute. We're gonna switch to the other side. So I'm gonna now tuck my right leg here. This left leg comes over. I'm gonna grab here, hook into the arm, drop my left hip down. I'm gonna start the timer. And now I'm pulling this knee to my opposite armpit while I'm trying to let this hip drop and relax, and I'm straightening out my spine. Breathe. On most things, I'm a bit more inflexible on my right side, my right hip. So I usually start with that side. And the reason I mention that is because on this side, I definitely feel like I'm able to really get in that hip a bit more. And I feel a big stretch on this side. I recommend trying to breathe through the nose on some of these, in and out. Okay, that's a minute. So this next one is called the pretzel. This is going to be stretching some of the front of the hip, that quad area, along with getting some thoracic rotation. Really enjoy this one. So the way we're gonna start is in a little side lying position here. I'm gonna grab the ankle of this bottom leg like so, okay? Now this knee is gonna stay up at 90 at the hip right here. Now I'm gonna pull my heel to my butt, and then I'm gonna gradually let this right shoulder fall down to the ground. Okay, so we're really twisting ourselves up here. I'm gonna start the timer, a minute. I'm trying to keep this the right knee down as well. This can be pretty intense. Right now I'm feeling a big stretch in my left quad, and I'm feeling some stretching in my right thoracic region, the lat, probably some of the deeper spinal muscles as well. Try to relax into this. You can squeeze the left glute a bit to give you a little bit more hip extension on that right side. And if you can touch your right knee and your right shoulder down, you're getting some pretty good range of motion there. So let's do this next side. I'm gonna do it facing away from you so you can see this other side here. You start a minute, pulling that up. Breathe. Hopefully I have some relaxing music going in the background for you guys that are following along with me. And this side is definitely a bit more stiff. My left shoulder does not quite get down to the ground on this side. But this stretch feels really great. And when you stand up after this stretch, you feel like your spine's really open and straightened out a bit. Good. And the last thing I want to mention is this one you do want to be pretty active. So I'm actively pulling the shoulder down, actively pushing my hip forward, squeezing the glutes, not just relaxing. Okay, now after that, we're gonna hop into stretching the hamstring a bit. So we're gonna come up on the knees here, and leg out like so, straight. We're gonna go all the way locked out at the knee here. If you want to put a little cushion under your knee, if you don't have super strong knees like me, that's fine. And from here, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna start the timer. I want you to try to extend and arch the lower back, and then pull your chest down towards the knee, just like so. Trying to keep as much arch in that lower back as you can. We're gonna do that for the first 30 seconds. And then the next 30 seconds, we're gonna go ahead and round the back and just get as deep into it as we can without worrying about spinal flexion, okay? So I'm here, I'm also pulling my toes back so we can capture some of this calf stuff as well. Okay, that's 30, so now I'm gonna round the spine, I'm gonna grab my foot. For me, I can get my nose down to my knee. You might not be there, that's totally fine, but we're just rounding over. I'm trying to kind of smush my thigh to my left part of my stomach here. I'm pulling my toes back as well to capture that quad. Boom, 1 minute. Let's switch. I just realized that the audio might be a little muffled there because I'm all scrunched down here talking. So, sorry for that. We'll start our minute. We're first arching the back, pulling that knee and chest together. Pulling my toes back a little bit here. Not a little bit, all the way. And it doesn't matter if my foot is flat or like that. Either one's fine. I'd say work on what you need to work on. I kind of need to work on this one here. And that's 30 seconds. Now I'm gonna pull myself down, nose to knee, if you can get that. Breathe, relax into this one. For me, I'm kind of trying to get my butt to relax here. Get that whole backside softening here. Yes. All right. 1 minute. So we'll just pause here for 1 second. I do want to say we're holding for 1 minute in most of these, but honestly, for a lot of these, you'll get probably more out of them if you're holding for something around 90 seconds to 2 minutes. So if you feel like something is good and needs more, go longer. Next one, we're gonna do what I just call a deep hip flexor stretch. So I'm gonna get into this position here, right? You can kind of start in a half kneeling if that's easy for you. And then from here, I'm just gonna lift on my toes. I'm gonna push this knee back as much as I can. I like to flip my toes around here so my top of my foot's on the ground. I'm gonna start the minute. And now from here, I'm simply just pressing my right hip down into the ground. I'm kind of moving forward at this diagonal vector, trying to bring my right hip to my left heel almost. I'm also kind of reaching the left hip forward, and it's almost like the two leg bones are going in the opposite directions. One is moving forward, one is moving backwards. Now, one thing that we can also do here is just kind of rotate toward this leg that's forward, and that's going to open up some tissue to maybe even get a little bit deeper into this stretch. And you should just be feeling this in the front of the hip and that hip flexor. You can also squeeze the glute. This is a very nice one, especially if you get stiff in the front of the hip, like most of us do. Let's do the other side. 1 minute on the timer. Just kind of adjusting here, getting that left hip moving forward. Getting the right knee moving forward as well. Spend about half time, rotate this way a bit. Cool, very cool. Ease yourself out of that one. Ooh, this front of the hips should feel a little bit more open there. Maybe squeeze your butt a little bit better after that. Now, we're gonna move into 90-90 position here. 90-90 for position. So for this, we're gonna do a pigeon, leaning forward here. I'm gonna have you keep this at about 90, right? Actually, not about 90, right at 90. It's gonna give you the best results for stretching this front hip, okay? I'm gonna start the timer. We're gonna come down and we're gonna bring that chest down towards the mid shin to ankle area here, okay? And it starts. Try to relax this front hip as we sink down. Try not to round the back too much here. Keep a straight spine. You might get a little rounding, that's okay. Breathe. This is a tough position, this 90-90, so if you need a cushion under this hip, then prop yourself up a bit if this is just not even possible to get to. Okay, let's go ahead and switch to the other side. Ooh, I should have been doing my right first, but I switched to the left there. That's okay. Now we get this right side going. I have a video showing this one as well as an elevated pigeon stretch. I'll throw a link on the screen or kind of dive a little bit deeper into this if you find that this helps, which it most likely will, and this will help you work towards more of the full pigeon stretch where we get this leg back straight. Which feels really good when you can find this stretch. Nice. If you can do it right now, you can explore that a bit. But if we're keeping this knee at 90, this stretch becomes much more difficult for most people. We can really help loosen these glutes and rotators up. Guys, that is it for the formal stretching. Let's sit in the squat here for a minute at the end. I always like to sit in the squat after I do any type of stretching, just to kind of reinforce this position. This is always a good position to hang out in and actually use some of that hip flexibility that we just gained from doing all this, right? As well as some spinal, thoracic mobility as well. See how your squat feels. If you need to elevate the heels a bit, that's totally fine. If you need to hold on to something, that's totally fine. But one thing I've been actively paying attention to lately is trying to keep those arches in my feet while I'm in the squat position and trying to let the hips relax a bit and let those rotators and glutes just kind of drop down, release some tension to get a nice deep squat position. All right, that's a minute. Guys, hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully you feel pretty loose right now, like I do. I'm actually about to go hop in the car for a little mini road trip, and that's why I wanted to do this. Welcome to strength of the wall. We'll ask whether it's open. It's fine that you.
Like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Like the Titanic. Like the Titanic. Like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. Ice blue, like the Atlantic, and I'm going down like the Titanic. You're the same kind of broken as me. All the damage kinda crazy is I got a temper like fire on your sleeve. These fake conversations make occupy my thoughts, and these awkward situations got me feeling out of touch. So speak your love language to me. I understand just what you need. No one can hear it like me. So speak your love language to me. I understand just what you need. No one can hear it like me, like me. Speak your love language to me. I understand just what you need. No one can hear it like me, like me. I'm tripping all over these words. My vision is blurred, can't see a thing. You don't know how to call me right now. Without making a sound, you risk me. These fake conversations make it occupy my thoughts, and these awkward situations got me feeling out of touch. So speak your love language to me. I understand just what you need. No one can hear it like me. So speak your love language to me. I understand just what you need. No one can hear it like me, like me. Speak your love language to me. I understand just what you need. No one can hear it like me, like me. Pushing past the limit, tripping on hallucinations. My cigarette burned my finger, but I lit it. Ripping with my sinners, 'cause fuck it, man, I ain't no beginner. And then I crawled back to the life that I said I wouldn't live in. 'Cause I just couldn't open up, I'm always shifting. Go find yourself a man who's strong and tall and Christian. Pushing past the limit, tripping on hallucinogens. My cigarette burned my finger 'cause I forgot I lit it. Drunk in Seattle to my hands without a paddle. pushing past the limit, tripping on the easiness with my cigarette on my finger, cause I forgot I lit it. World, I want to leave you better. I want my life to matter. I am afraid I have no purpose here. I watch the news on TV, abandon myself daily. I am afraid to let you see. Oh, you know me when it falls, when it falls. Follow me when it falls, when it falls. Sowing the seeds of love and hope, love and love. We're born out this day, stuck in the weeds. The courage to change our minds, the courage to change our minds, the courage to change the world. The courage to change our minds, the courage to change our minds, the courage to change the world.
Welcome to Strength Side. If you're looking for a quick our body will go as a required ability to learn how to properly you can quickly exercise your shoulders and your feet together at the front, place up the hips and try to drop to the ground inwards, and then from up and to the right and reach what so try and hand slide. The isn't it you out there's that walk back and opens the shadow then Moses the kick walk horses not a in the picture is for by lining and lightly pulling it up to our chest. Let's start open up, and this is a great stretching routine to do in the morning to open up and awaken all the joints of the body. Let's start by lying down flat on the back. Now we will begin by taking one knee and lightly pulling it up to our chest. Hold this for about 10 seconds. And now let's grab the back side of the leg and straighten the knee. And you'll go ahead and bend the knee, and you'll work between these 2 points here. And no matter what your starting point is, I want you to see if over the course of doing these reps, you can get the knee closer and closer towards your chest. This is an excellent way to open up the hamstrings. And on this last rep, you're going to hold in that straight position for around 10 seconds. Relax, go ahead and switch sides, and we'll start with just gently pulling that knee up to our chest. And you can grab the back of your leg and begin with these hamstring flosses. And back when I had the stiffest hamstrings in the West, this side of the Mississippi, this is a stretch that I use a lot to start to unglue those things. These can be really effective, especially if you have some good stiffness back there behind the knee. And let's hold on this final rep for 10 seconds. Go ahead and relax, and we'll move directly into a hip rotation stretch. So you'll cross one ankle over the opposite knee, and then pull the knee or back of the thigh towards your chest. And right now I am feeling the stretch in my right hip. This is a great stretch to open up the piriformis muscle, which is great for opening up your ability to move and rotate your hip. This should feel good for you. So if it feels good to pull more on the knee and make it more intense, then go ahead and do that. If you want to back off a little bit, that's completely fine too. Find a good zone for you to be in. Now I'm going to set my foot down and gently drive my knee away from me. Now in this position, we'll be opening up the external rotation, which is great for something like sitting cross-legged. Give your knee that gentle, loving push. And let's go ahead and switch to the other side, starting with our piriformis stretch. So cross the ankle over the knee and pull that knee back to the chest. Stretching is all about getting your body used to the new ranges that you're putting it in. It's not just about lengthening a muscle, it's about getting new stimulus to your body frequently and letting your body adjust to that. And if you're a stiffer person like me, it takes this consistent, gentle nudge out of the comfort zone frequently to make that change in your body. So go ahead and set your foot down and press that knee away from you. Let's relax, and now I want you to hug your knees to your chest. Try to make yourself in a ball here. Tuck your chin and see how tucked you can get your body. This is a straight fetal position here. And now lay your torso down, but keep your knees tucked and place your arms overhead. And then you can come back up, and we're going to move between the overhead position and then the arms to the side. So what we're doing here, keeping the knees tucked, ensures that we have neutral spine, and then we're moving the shoulders under this good stability. This is so important for the shoulders to move with this stable, neutral spine. A lot of the times when we get shoulder stiffness, neck stiffness, this comes because we're arching through the lower back and flaring our rib cage to do motion